Hello, guys, and welcome to the Zoom interview series. I'm really excited today, firstly because it's my first female that I've actually interviewed so far on the Zoom interview series, and her name is Jodi Dontje, and she is an incredible speaker. She's done TEDx, and she's also a mindset and intimacy coach. And I would love to introduce you to Jody. Jody, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, namaste, Jody. Firstly, I'm so honoured to be the first female in your interview series. What an absolute honour, and grateful to be on to add value. And to introduce a bit about myself, I'll probably start off with a question that will lead into what my passion is in life. And my question is, well, did you know that public speaking is the #1 fear in the world?
Absolutely.
People would actually rather be in a really small box, really high up with snakes or die than to public speak. Literally, public speaking takes the cake on arachnophobia, claustrophobia, even death. And that's a really big deal, right? And it really leads up to the question of, well, why is that the case? Why is it something that so many people struggle with? And not just public speaking in the sense of speaking in front of big audiences, but communication and just putting themselves out there and owning their voice in general is a really difficult thing. So I'm really passionate about that, having come from a background of bullying and racism, having come from a background of financial difficulty, and just going through a lot of struggle as a child and not really feeling that I was worthy of being heard. I didn't have a lot of confidence of speaking in front of large audiences. It was really difficult. And it wasn't until I really understood all these elements of what makes us tick and why we're being held back with public speaking that my whole world changed. And I'll go more into that later. But really, there's two big reasons why public speaking is #1 fear in the world. The first thing is our brains are literally made to protect us, right? So many people say, when I get in front of an audience, I think I know what I'm going to say, and then I forget everything. And it's so normal, right? The amygdala takes off if we don't have the right strategies to manage our body and our mind. And when the amygdala does that, our prefrontal cortex and frontal cortex literally just shuts down, which is like our memory and our higher cognitive functioning. And so when we understand that, it almost takes us weight off our shoulders, like, oh, it's normal that this happens. Oh, and there's easy ways to overcome this. Great. So I'm really passionate about sharing that with people. And the second part of that is, it's such a huge topic and everyone kind of gets a little bit like, oh, when they hear that word, but it's childhood. Ultimately, what are we told consistently when we grow up? No, don't do that. Stop. That's unsafe. We get told over and over and over again with these messages of it's unsafe and don't do that. And, what are people going to think? And so when we get older, we get really scared about taking risks and trusting in our own decisions. And so, like you mentioned, I'm a public speaking coach and a mindset coach, but I'm also a really passionate emotional intimacy and emotional fitness coach, because I know that public speaking isn't just a skill thing, it's an emotional thing. It's really part of being an emotional being and understanding how to gravitate our emotional world. So that's what I'm really passionate about, and I'm very excited to be here to share more about how people can really transform their lives with these strategies and these mindset shifts.
Thank you, Jody. That is that's an incredible message for our audience. And isn't it interesting how, when we're younger, how we are, our upbringing, the situations, the events, the people that come into our life. And first thing I'm thinking of is bullying. That can completely change the path that we're on until we have that emotional awareness around it. Wow, that's an incredible message for the audience. Thank you so much for sharing it.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you for holding the space and letting me share.
So, what has been your experience with COVID-19? I don't like to talk about it a lot in the interviews, but it is something that's happening in the world right now, and it's affecting industries, it's affecting events, it's also affecting public speaking, as in large audiences. So, how has COVID-19, Jody, affected you emotionally, and also how has it affected you in your career going forward with any events?
That's such a great question. And like you said, COVID's very real with economic and social and professional and business and all of those, sectors. It really has been an effect on a lot of people. And I also feel that there's been so much growth in terms of the awareness that people are gaining right now about themselves. So when I make it, in answering your question specifically around me, I'm really grateful for having gone on the flow of the journey of the emotions throughout this. And at the same time, because I know my values so well and I have the incredible habits I've been able to implement with my partner and we feel really good. We in terms of our emotional being are actually doing really well because we've actually upped what I always talk about in my events, which is a contribution mindset. During this time, and this is a big message for everybody, it's so easy to wallow in our own uncomfortableness or uncertainty. And I do understand people are going through all different levels of uncertainty, right? Some people are really doing it hard and not having, they maybe lost their job and not having any backing of finances and all that. So I understand how real that is. And it's so important that during those times of uncertainty that we up our contribution mindset and we up our connection to other people. And you mentioned, one of your C's is connection as well. And it's so important because we are social beings. We need other people. So for myself, at the beginning, I had lost thousands of dollars and lost all these incredible speaking opportunities of Academy XI, Monash Uni, Fed Uni, Mentor and Girls Grammar, all these different things. So it was really hard. And I do believe that we need to feel our feelings when things happen. So I was really upset for a few days. These were people I was really looking forward to serving and helping. And it was a really big shock at the beginning. Like, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this now. And then the contribution mindset really kicked in and I went, well, how can I now serve in a way that's going to optimize how many people I can reach? And so I just went fully into changing my whole trajectory of what I do and turned everything, all my live events into online programs and into online opportunities and memberships and ways to serve people. And now it's absolutely amazing. I feel that my business is now fully online and I'm impacting people in a way deeper way because people are needing more emotional intimacy and emotional fitness skills. And whereas before I was focusing a lot on public speaking and mindset, now I've really lent into my expertise of emotionality and fitness and launching courses specifically around how we can be emotionally intimate, emotionally fit, and have emotional communication skills too. Because people need that more than ever. It's so important that we have the awareness and the skills that we just weren't taught, unfortunately, in schools. And having been a teacher in my background, qualified teacher, having worked in over 57 different schools across 4 different countries, being a humanitarian, working in a lot of overseas, developing country schools as well, I really see the gap that's there. And that really is being taught fundamental human skills and knowledge points about how we fit in our emotional world and how we fit into other people's emotional world and how we gravitate that. So to answer your question in summary, I had to go through the emotions at the beginning of feeling all the things. And then I just lent into my values and then just lent into contribution mindset and have been flowing through this journey in a way that it's reached levels that I could never have expected. And I'm so grateful. And that's why I really do think it's so important for people to know their values, know how to tap into a contribution mindset, and to be able to have emotional intimacy skills. It's paramount.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jody. And, that just got me thinking around, for the audience listening, what a great message, because anyone that's in business right now, we have to adapt to COVID-like way. So if you're running a business right now, if you're going through some personal stuff, because obviously COVID-19 has affected us emotionally, myself included, I'm quite happy to put my hand up and say it was really tough for me for a few weeks as well. But that's incredible. I love the way that you have, you've accepted the situation and you've changed your business to adapt for COVID. And that way also you're able to reach a lot more people. So I really hope that that's a message for whoever's listening today, to not give up if you're running a business and things kind of have affected you through COVID, because there is always a way, and if there isn't a way, you need to find a way. You need to adapt to how the world is right now. Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Absolutely.
So, what do you do when you're not working, Jody? You know, I always like to build great rapport with my guests and just discover who they really are outside of work. Like, what do you do? Like, what is something that would, you know, create a happy day for you?
Oh, I love that question. I think it's so important that we, like you mentioned, we don't just see the front of the passion, the business, and that part of things, but also just see the everyday life side of people, right? It's such an important thing to unravel. Probably three big things for me. The first thing would be adventure and outdoors is something I'm really, really passionate about. Obviously, especially being in Melbourne, the adventure in terms of travel and all of that had been put on hold. My adventure is, in a 5 kilometer radius. However, I've been really leaning into still that love for the outdoors and still going to the beach. Luckily, I have it in the 5 kilometer radius, still going to the parks and, running, walking and running around. And that feels so good. So I've been keeping that up, which I think is really important for all of us to remember, that even though we might have restrictions, we still can have so much adventure around us and still can enjoy what is still present in our lives. The second big thing would be to spend as much time as I can with the love of my life. And we've been together now for almost 5 years. We met on a bus in London, and I used to work and teach and be in London. And so he's from the Netherlands, born in the same small hometown as my father, which is like a whole nother story. Oh my gosh.
Interview number 2 on that one.
That's it. I'm just like, wait for the second part, right? So that's such a beautiful story, and I'm always so grateful for how we met and how we have each other in each other's lives. So we spend as much time as we can together, and once again, I think it's so important for people to cultivate those deeper connections. And the third thing is probably what you're not expecting, but it's guinea pigs, actually. So I actually am obsessed with guinea pigs. I have 3 beautiful girls. They're called my triple A's, Ash, Ava, and Amber. And they are the most gorgeous little guinea pigs that anyone could be, just privileged to have in their lives. So I spend as much time as I can with them too. I'm literally running an event, and then I'll go out, give them some lettuce, feed them, and they'll go back into an event again. I love it. I love it.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you laugh. And I
Okay.
promise you can call my mother and ask her. When I was a little girl, I was obsessed with guinea pigs, and I actually called them Peppy 1, Peppy 2, and Peppy 3. And oh gosh, I was absolutely obsessed with guinea pigs when I was a lot younger for many years. So yeah, I can totally relate to just how cute they are. And thanks for sharing that story. And
You're welcome. I love it. Pippi 1 and 2 and 3.
yeah, Peppy.
That's
It's funny the
awesome.
names we think of, isn't it? But it's individuality, isn't it? It's,
Yeah, I love it.
and I love what you were saying about being outdoors and being in nature. Would you say that that's a vital thing for anyone living in, the Western world today, that we absolutely need the work-life balance, as in, we need to be moving our bodies and exercise? Like, I'd love to hear your view on that, Jody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel it's always funny when we talk about that work-life balance as well, because in a way we'd really want people to get to a point where it's just life. It's not necessarily like this is work and this is my personal life, but it's I'm living life in all of it and accepting it all as part of me. So that's what I really would love for more and more people to get to a stage in their lives, however they've done that, whether that's building their own business or just changing their mindset or connecting with certain people that just lift them up in environments, whatever it is for them, to feel that it's just all life. And then when it comes to, like you mentioned, fitness and health, yeah, it's so important. And everyone has a different level of need in terms of outdoors and nature. Some people, they actually are pretty happy indoors, and that's all good, right? And
Yeah,
as
like my
human
son,
beings,
he's on
yeah,
devices, absolutely.
yeah, exactly. So some people at this stage of their life, wherever they are, they're quite happy with it. So that's all good. But in terms of fitness and well-being, it's so paramount. I mean, not just emotional fitness, but just the fitness of keeping your body, like you said, activated and moving. And I often share with people who, I'm able to coach, who work in quite high stress and high productive environments, that it's so important for them to manage themselves and their energy. And a lot of the time it's not time management, it's energy management. right? So that's every half an hour, well, 20 minutes, half an hour, or 50 minutes, taking a little shake break, I call it, shaking out the body, walking around, breathing, taking in some deep breaths. Box breathing is really good. Drinking water throughout the day, really keeping themselves active in that way. Another big way to keep healthy and have a good sense of well-being is to limit reaction and heighten proaction and intention. So especially the morning block, not having reactive situations, just pretty much framing how they're going to feel for the rest of the day. There's so many people that I know the first thing that they do when they get up is go on their phone and drop their phone on their face almost, looking at their messages or listening to the news. And even listening to the news, which might seem like it's a bit of a harmless thing, just updating themselves. When you do that first thing in the morning, you're really just being susceptible to the energies of social media and the energy of messaging on the news, instead of just owning how you're feeling in that space in the morning. And so when we do that and we externalize how we're feeling, we give our power away. So I think it's really important to limit reactivity in the morning, limit reactivity in the evenings, and just be aware of that social media, what I call scroll syndrome, that happens throughout the days as well. And even just that, limiting social media, it really is going to bring more sense of well-being, because then people can fill that time with just movement or listening to music or breathing or having a nice conversation with somebody, instead of basically just being addicted to numbing and going on social medias as well. So I just think that's a really important point that people might not conventionally think when they talk about health and fitness. It's a really important thing that we integrate, as well as all the other things: eat healthy, be fit, and all that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, another question I have for you, because it's been on my mind this week and I've done a bit of research on it, because I am going to put my hand up and say I am one of those geeks that research things for hours, because I have to learn new information all the time. It's just who I am, so it's fine.
Awesome.
What is your view on, the statistics with apparently loneliness is at its absolute worst throughout the whole world right now. And obviously people have been removed from their, normal connections, the community side, with the COVID stuff, with everything else going on. What is your view on, loneliness in the world? Because the statistics apparently are that the people that are actually lonely have much higher rates of depression, where people that are actually got community connection, good friends in their life, they've actually got purpose, they're more likely to not suffer such high anxiety and such high depression. So, what is your view on loneliness, and what can we do? What can we do when we're feeling kind of lonely and isolated, like a lot of people are right now in the world? Sorry, and I'm putting all these questions on you.
No, it's such a great question. Thank you so much. And firstly, to really make what you shared validated as well, that it's so true. And especially being a humanitarian and having done a lot of volunteer work in developing countries, some of the communities that we work in have so little, but because of community, because of having a tight family relation and tight friendship relation, they are happy and they live for years and years and years. I've met so many people who are almost 100 years old in these rural villages, in their 90s, and still looking quite good and healthy. And it was just fascinating. Of course, there's other factors too involved, but definitely community and connection is a huge part of that. So to break what you shared into probably 3 parts to answer it, the first one is, why is this the case? Why is loneliness going up? And a lot of that is because people are now facing their truths. So a lot of people have actually been internally lonely, and it wasn't until COVID happened where everything kind of stopped and they weren't distracted by focusing on the external, focusing on addictions. And addictions is not just obviously alcohol and drugs and all those things, but addiction could be addiction to work. And I was definitely at one point in my life so addicted to work, nothing else mattered. It was just work, work, work. So addicted to work, or addicted to gaming, or addicted to exercise, or addicted to whatever else it is. And so because a lot of that in a way has stopped in terms of the external distractions of, going to be addicted to going to the gym, they couldn't do that anymore. Addicted to spending time with friends, couldn't do that anymore. They've had to sit with themselves and therefore accept their truth, that they're actually quite lonely, or they don't know who they are, or they don't feel like they have purpose in life. A lot of loneliness is also connected to purpose. It's also connected to, do they know themselves? There's a lot of other factors involved as well. So the first thing is being aware of this. So being aware in our lives of addictions that we have. being aware in our lives of where we are numbing. Once we're aware about that, then we're able to replace those behaviors of numbing and addictions into a more empowering habit, or to change and ask for support. First, it's awareness. It's so important. And that includes childhood as well. And hence why I love going into emotional intimacy, because so often our behaviors is because of our relationship with our parents in our past. It's because of bullying. It's because of our family relations and our dynamics in our family, our tribal cycles. So first and foremost, awareness of childhood, numbing, addictions, awareness on the emotional world in general. The second big answer to that is to really be able to sit with ourselves and be with our emotions. You know, to share one of the biggest tools that we can have is called the 4 steps of emotional intimacy. So when we're feeling lonely, it's okay to feel that way. That's really important. Whatever we're feeling, it's okay to feel that way. Once we're able to detach the idea that we shouldn't be feeling a certain way, or just shouldn't be like this, that's suffering, right? Because there's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. We are all going to experience pain in our lives. It's just a fact. We're human beings. We're made for pain, because pain allows us to become more resilient, allows us to have more empathy, allows us to grow. So pain includes uncomfortable emotions. There's no good or bad emotions, but it includes uncomfortable emotions. So for some people, anger is a bit more uncomfortable. For other people, joy is actually a bit more uncomfortable. It's a very funny thing. So the first thing is to understand uncomfortable emotions or pain, that's inevitable. But suffering is a choice. And suffering is where we go into the story of telling ourselves it shouldn't be the way it is. And it shouldn't be like this. So the first thing, the second as the main takeaway, is for people to accept what they're feeling. And they don't have to go into story. Just own it as the truth.
Yep. And that's a really great point for the audience. We can't really do anything to change ourselves until we can actually deal with it, and self-acceptance. And you know, it's interesting, this whole interview about our childhood and how we were brought up and the people that came into our life. And I'm guessing that, you know, obviously, you know, some people take that with them throughout, some of them sadly throughout their whole lives. Luckily, you know, there's so much incredible coaches and leaders and mentors and thought leaders that are opening up to that. You know, just because we were a certain way when we were younger does not mean that we have to be that way now. And you know, it's incredible. It's almost like that's when you have sort of that aha moment, but you're not going to have that aha moment until you have awareness around it and actually discover the why and figure out, oh, that's why I've been like that my whole life. So I'm really excited, and you know, that's an amazing message for the audience, whoever's listening. You know, someone might be, you know, a certain way, but if you're not happy being that way, there is always a way out. We can always change, but it's not till we're aware of it. Is that right, Jody?
Absolutely. And it's to love the whole experience. You know, I love what you're sharing, and I feel such a vibe with what you're sharing as well, because it's really, it's loving and accepting all of us. And if we're feeling down, if we're feeling lonely, if we're feeling anger, if we're feeling jealousy, if we're feeling guilt, that's part of us. We are feeling beings. We're emotional beings. And yet, because of the first part, there's not enough awareness for some people around addictions and numbing and childhood, and they block it out. They aren't able to realize that they are numbing the emotions that make them who they are, and their truth is through their emotional connection. And so, you know, the second big point is just to be able to sit with our emotions, breathe into it. Don't go into story, don't go into our heads. Just, if we're feeling a certain way, just sit with it, breathe into it. And once we fully feel it, you know, it's going to come out in tears, or it's going to come out in screams, or it's going to come out in some way or form of vulnerability. Once we fully feel it, it's what we call an emotional, completing an emotional cycle. We release the emotion, then it's out, and then we feel better.
Absolutely.
And then the whole world opens up. Until we have that awareness that we might loop through numbing or through external distractions, then we only suppress the emotion. It gets stored in our body, and then all of a sudden one day you just explode because you're waiting in traffic, and all of a sudden you're just really angry and like, ah, and it's actually just because you suppressed that emotion for such a long time, right, that we've just put it down. So yes, definitely the second one is to own the full experience and be with that. And the third one would be contribution mindset. I'm just going to keep coming back to that again. When lonely, one of the best ways to overcome that loneliness and to feel connected is through contribution. You know, it's through sending a nice message to some people on Facebook and just going, hey, I just want to let you know you're a really great human being. And I feel like you should know that. Or calling up somebody, or volunteering, or whatever it is. You know, having come from a background of severe identity issues and huge subconscious tendencies, I was so insecure that I remember if I would meet someone new, I would write a list of 10 things or more that I would talk about with them in fear that I wouldn't know what to talk about and they would judge me. I would be so just on edge about everything and every person I was meeting. And it wasn't until I started volunteering, it wasn't until I found humanitarian work, I found charity work, that I let go of all those insecurities, because I was like, it's not about me. Like, I'll grow and everything awesome will happen as well, yes. And it's important to have healthy boundaries and have me time, yes. But my insecurities are not about me. These people in front of me need me right now. Why am I making it about me? They need me to serve. They need me to show up for them. So I'm going to push through my boundaries and I'm going to show up for them. And then the more we do that, the more we begin to trust ourselves that we're safe, that we're okay. And then we feel good about helping other people. And it's this beautiful upward cycle. And then one day we look on the other side and we're like, hey, I'm free. I'm free of that fear. How amazing is that?
That is absolutely amazing. And I love this message for myself, for whoever's listening, you know, for the whole world. There are so many charities and volunteer work, and there's so much help needed in the world right now to mend it. And we can all do our little bit. And, you know, Jody has raised a great message around, you know, if we're feeling lonely, if we're feeling sorry for ourselves, if we're feeling unhappy, it's not actually good to be too self-absorbent. You know, it's about me, it's about how I'm feeling, because when we use our emotions to make decisions, it's not always the most logical way. So I actually want to encourage the audience today to go out there and volunteer with your unique skill set, to go out there and make a difference. And you will be surprised just how good you feel, because you're doing your bit to help the world. And I think if we all do that, we would live in a much happier, peaceful place where, it would just be incredible. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it's so amazing. And
Uh,
one other thing I wanted to talk about, just because obviously you're about emotions, I'm a firm believer in emotional intelligence. I actually think everyone needs some form of awareness around emotional intelligence, because you know, us humans, we are emotional beings, right, Jody? And sometimes we don't always make the right decisions that are actually the right thing to do, because we base it on our emotions, which is our perception of the world, us, I. Where if there are other people involved, sometimes it's more about, you know, taking a breather, taking a step back, and actually thinking more on a logical decision basis. So I just wanted to put it out there that I'm a big believer on emotional intelligence and knowing your own emotions, knowing the
Absolutely.
triggers. That stuff can change your life, right, Jody?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all starts with that awareness and then everything opens up. You can't unknow what you know. And so it's a blessing
Exactly.
and a curse sometimes. No, it's
Yeah.
one of the most amazing things we could ever do for ourselves, especially like you said, we are emotional beings. So if we don't have that awareness and the skills, the practical skills, we're basically swimming in just confusion and swimming in old patterns, and we're just blind to our potential, but also how much we can make a difference to other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so one last thing before we wrap up this awesome interview. It's been so much fun interviewing you, and I've actually learned a lot today. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Did
Thank you
you
for
want to
having me.
quickly tell the audience a little bit about your online course that you've got?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'm so passionate about this new focus that I'm really diving into, which is I have my public speaking mastery course, which is absolutely epic. It's 5 weeks of just pure transformation for people to be able to grow as public speakers and communicators in their personal and professional lives. And also what I've launched now as one of the main foci is emotional intimacy mastery, and it's emotional fitness mastery and emotional communication mastery. So it's a whole course just around how can we hold space for others, how can we hold space for ourselves, how can we understand our emotional world, how can we understand other people's emotional worlds, how can we ensure that fear, anxiety, uncertainty doesn't stop us from really living the life we want to live. How can we have emotional communication skills as leaders in our family or as leaders in our professional lives? It is just, I just notice it's the biggest gap that's out there for so many businesses and people in the professional sense, but also just in families. You know, why not have these skills to be able to help families and help the new generation to have these tools to be able to create just a better next world for humans and for the planet and for animals and for everything, right? It all comes down to understanding ourselves and our emotions, how we fit in the world. So I have an emotional intimacy mastery course as well. And then I also do one-to-one coaching, which I'm very, very passionate about. I love working one-on-one with people as well. And there's obviously so many other things too, online programs, but those are the big ones for people, is if they want to grow their public speaking skills and overcome those fears around that, or they want to grow an emotionally fit and emotionally intimate human being and leader of their own life and leader of others, then that's what I am really here to serve with. And I only invite people into the courses once I've gotten to know them. So I always, want to get to know people first and see if they're the right fit. And some people are just not the right fit right now in their lives. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. And, I just ask people if they want to get to know themselves a bit more, then I'm happy to have a call with them and give them some clarity. And if we're a match, then they can join one of the programs. So they can just email me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
You're
I'm going to ask you one last question, because I actually always like to challenge my guests on the show.
Great. Awesome.
It's always fun being a host, actually. If you could solve one problem in the world, one problem today, what would that be and why?
I think you could probably guess it. If that one problem I could solve, if I could only have one problem right to solve, it would be the problem of the gap with emotional intimacy and emotional fitness skills. That is one gap in childhood that if we know that, I truly believe that the world would just be a way more coherent, supportive, and growth-based space if we have those skills. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Jody. That was a beautiful answer. Thank you so much. And I've really enjoyed connecting with you, having this unique conversation about the work that you do. And you're obviously very passionate about emotional intelligence and intimacy and great communication, which I also believe is a game changer. It could change the world if we all learnt to communicate better. So I think we're very much on the same level here.
I'm vibing. We've got the same life.
We're
We've got the
vibing.
same name.
Yes.
We love guinea pigs, so we have
absolutely. So I also just want to thank the audience. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I really always hope that the audience gets a lot from these interviews. I hope that you got a golden nugget out of today's interview. I'll be posting up Jody's links on the YouTube channel and on all the other social media. If you liked this interview, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be interviewing some incredible people coming up. So I'm very excited and I don't want you to miss out. And if you have any comments, just put them in the comments box and we will respond. But everyone, have a great day and we will be chatting soon. Bye for now, Jody.
Bye. Namaste,
Bye.
everyone.